Hello, this is Dan Farisi, Group Editor, Commercial and Security with Emerald. So happy to be joined today by Bryce Nordstrand, who is VP Managed Services with ADI Snap One. Topic of conversation is, of course, InfoComm 2025. It is nearly upon us. The entire industry is super excited to get together in Orlando and check out all the latest technologies. And that includes, of course, technologies from Access Networks, which you can find at the ADI Snap One booth 3728 when you get to InfoComm. Thank you so much, Bryce, for joining me today to give us a little bit of a preview and just whet our appetites about what you're going to be able to check out with Access Networks.
Thanks, Ian. Happy to be here.
Great to have you. Let's get right into it. I'd like to talk a little bit about Wi-Fi 7. You want to just kind of give a primer or an introduction and also talk about the impact of the technology?
Sure. Wi-Fi 7, I think, is a little bit different than what we've seen in the past as far as iterations of Wi-Fi. I think the biggest difference is that it's more or less a total rewrite of the technology. Wi-Fi 5 to Wi-Fi 6 was very much a kind of an upgrade. Wi-Fi 7 actually impacts all three of the frequency bands, where before it was really just adding some features to either 2.4 or 5. So the rewrite really has an impact across all three frequency bands. The biggest one that we see impacting a lot of the technologies that are out there is multi-link operation. And that allows these devices, handheld, desktops, computers, all kinds of different things to communicate on multiple different frequency bands at the same time, therefore increasing bandwidth quite significantly. That as well as the difference in QAM that you get with 6 gigahertz, and you get a much higher level of QAM, therefore allowing you to transmit a lot more data than what has historically been possible with Wi-Fi. So what was the other part of your question?
I was just asking about the impact of the technology, but
Sure.
I'd also like to just talk about, the portfolio that you offer. But if you want to talk a little bit about the impact, we can start with that.
Yeah, the impact is really, ultimately it comes down to a lot of the environments in which we see Wi-Fi being utilized and the devices now that are being connected, needing to not just communicate out to the internet or communicate, analog to the person, but to actually communicate with each other internally on the network and pass data back and forth for think sensors, automation systems, building automation systems that maybe are communicating back to personal devices. All of that needs to be very consistent at the same time as that device also being used for getting work done, maybe at the home, streaming video or whatever it is. And so when you look at all these things that are now being interconnected, both internally on a network and going out to the world, we really need to have the ability to have all these connections happening at the same time and not interrupting each other. That's the expectation of us as humans, is that things kind of happen right away when we kind of command them to. And so Wi-Fi 7 will really have an impact to that performance and to that experience. As far as our portfolio of products currently, we have two models of indoor access point, the A770 and the A670. And those are both available now, and we've had great response, great feedback on the performance and how they're being utilized in projects. And then we have multiple other SKUs coming later this year and into next year to fill out both an indoor and outdoor Wi-Fi portfolio.
Exciting stuff. And I know when people go to booth 3728, go to the Access Networks displays, they'll be able to find out a little bit more about that pipeline, I'm sure, as well as what's currently out there in the wild. But just to change gears a little bit, I'd like to talk about Access Networks' suite of network design services. Would you like to just kind of introduce that in broad strokes, and then we'll go into more detail?
Sure. Yeah, we've been doing this for almost 2 decades now, as far as design services are concerned. And it really comes down to what a project needs. When we look at design services, it's not for every project. If you're going into the standard office or standard home to do a small deployment of Wi-Fi and a small network, that's pretty straightforward for most of the industry now. It's really when you get into these complex environments, when we look at MDUs, hospitality, where there's a potential that you're putting in not singles of access points, but tens or even hundreds of access points, and how that they might interrupt each other or affect each other. and also what the wired infrastructure needs to be to support both the Wi-Fi deployment, because that's obviously the way most of our devices interface now, and also what the wired infrastructure needs to be to support the business or home or other technologies that are going to be connected to the network, say like video over IP, those kind of things. So what we do is we have a really refined process where we collect a bunch of data from our customer partner regarding what their project entails and what the scope of it is. And then we start applying that to a network design. And we will do everything from basic bill of materials to an access point layout to heat mapping. We'll even go on site and do site surveys for the Wi-Fi. And then beyond that, once the design is done, they can take that and run with it and go do their own deployment and configuration, or we can do configuration and managed services beyond the point of deployment. And that's really when we're talking about that, is becoming a partner with them in their business and being able to support them with a full-blown team of IT professionals.
That partnership mentality is so critical these days. Just like, integrators, for example, don't want to simply be a provider or an installer for their clients. They want to be a partner. Likewise, access networks, you can be a partner to those in the channel, right? You can be a hand up, you can be a resource. You want to talk a little bit about the ARC platform and how it benefits that commercial sector the commercial integrator is so focused on, is so buried into?
Yeah, Arc is kind of it's our baby now. We've had it out in the market for a few years. It's compatible with both access networks, access points, and Ruckus access points. And so the Arc platform is really twofold. It's one, it's a way to go out and deploy quickly large-scale Wi-Fi deployments. Lots of access points. All the configuration is done in a cloud-based application where they can do all the configuration, setup, SSIDs, passwords, all of those things prior to actually installing a single item. And then once they go out, as long as the serial numbers are provided to the system, they'll connect those access points to a network. They'll call into the cloud and they'll get configuration. So they don't have to go around and configure each individual access point. It's kind of that multi-tenancy capability of what we would expect in an enterprise space. What we've done recently is we've layered on top of that a whole other capability inside of our own platform, which is the financial component of managing multiple Wi-Fi sites over a large geographic area or a large customer base. And inside of our ARC platform now, we have the ability to do multi-year contracts. The licenses that are needed for each one of the access points are perpetual, and then there's a service that's a yearly fee, but they can buy multiple years up front. It auto renews. If they remove an access point from a location, it'll automatically correct the billing. If they add an access point, it automatically co-terms the billing, and then they get reminders of when their billing is coming due, so that they can turn that around and bill their customers for that service as well. So the financial component was one of the most complex things that we had to figure out, and what we've built is incredibly powerful in that respect. And then just the overall ability for a customer of ours or partner of ours to go out and scale this in their business and add it to their recurring revenue stream, and also provide a level of service that you would expect from an IT datacom type professional, where they're being able to monitor. They're able to go in and make adjustments on the fly, troubleshoot issues without having to necessarily go on site and do all the work. They could do a lot of that remotely. And then again, managing that financial component of the entire system, which is probably one of the most complex, and the pieces of feedback that we get from our customers all the time is this is hard. How do you simplify it for me? And we've really built a platform out, and we want people to come by at InfoComm and check it out, because it's something real powerful for their business.
Sure sounds that way. And you use those magic words, recurring revenue. And I know that, channel partners, integrators are looking for ways to have that kind of subscriptionized, recurring, predictable revenue cadence. So they're not just having to lurch from project to project. I mean, it's really invaluable. So thank you so much for kind of diving deep into the ARC platform and the power that it unlocks for your partners. As we begin to wrap up the conversation, would you want to talk a little bit about custom design network solutions, the products included therein, and any closing thoughts about kind of the design services you offer?
Sure. As far as a custom design network, it's really we focus on on some major enterprise brands. One is being our own access networks, and then we have several other providers. We can do, like I mentioned earlier about the design process, we can do anything in scale. So we could do something as simple as two access points, a switch and a router, or we can do something as big as a campus-wide deployment with hundreds of access points, multiple IDFs and MDF locations, firewall service solutions, true security offering from one of the premier firewall providers in the industry. So we really have a full suite of design services. Our whole message to our customers and partners is to say, if you think you can't do the network, we can do it for you, and we can always make sure that you hit the mark with what your customers' expectations are.
You can't do the network, we'll do it for you. I think that's a really persuasive proposition these days, especially with everything moving onto the network. You need to be able, if you can't do it yourself, to find a partner or a provider who's going to be able to be that hand up to you. And it sounds like that is a real niche for access networks. Thank you so much, Bryce Nordstrand, for joining me today and giving us really important insights about what people can look forward to seeing when they get to 3728 and when they work with access networks.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, Bryce Nordstrand, VP Managed Services, ADI Snap One, whom you can see along with his colleagues at booth 3728 with Access Networks. And my name is Dan Farisi, Group Editor, Commercial and Security with Emerald. Please keep your eyes on commercialintegrator.com in the days and weeks ahead as we cover not just the run up to InfoComm, but throughout the show and after the show, more exciting thought leadership content, product news, service related news from all the vendors and suppliers you want to learn the most about, including, of course, Access Networks. Thank you again for tuning in.